All right, I'm Ed Cruz. Welcome again. This is the last lesson, episode 58. And this is the topic basically we're covering up without the release. So I think in the previous videos, I don't know exactly which one it was, I was talking about checkpoints to have. We said there's 6 checkpoints from the three triangle structures that we have. We have the legs, the body, and the arms. And from the legs, we simplified it to basically the knees. Have the awareness of the knees, make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do, right? Checkpoint there. Have the body, the vertical in place, have that stretch tension, checkpoint number 2. The arms a little bit more difficult. You have checkpoint number 3, 4, 5, 6, right? The shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, and the index finger. That's your checkpoint. So it counts into 6. In actuality, it's actually 8 because 4, 2 sides of the arms, okay? So a lot of the things, and then if those checkpoints are in place, okay, so say for example, I don't want to say you have to be perfect, but the reality is if you don't have all 6 happening in conjunction, check, or actually is it 6 or should I say it's 10, right? 6, 4, 10, right? It's 10 because 1, 2, and double is 8, so 10. If you don't have all 10 checkpoints in place, the end result is you won't be able to release the technique. Okay, so what does that mean, release the techniques? Release the technique means if you properly do the technique or the motion correctly, the power can be sent out. If you can't do it correctly, then the power stays within. And there's a lot of problems that occur when the power stays within. So for example, if my hand's here and the force comes into it, if I can release the technique, guess what? When the force comes in, then notice my hand rolls and still aims at the target the entire time. But if, let's say, out of the 10 checklists, 9 out of 10 occurs, or 8 out of 10 occurs, or 5 out of 10 occurs, what can happen? When the force comes in, this can happen. My hand collapses, moves out of the way, then retracts back in. Seems okay, but what happens? It can't do what it normally functions as far as basically maintain, bounce the force off, and rotate. So that's one of the things that can happen to it, the collapse or the break of your particular structure. Another thing that can happen is if, let's say, all those checkpoints are in place and you don't achieve the goal of releasing the technique, is basically the force comes in, lands on you, and basically you become a chirpa. You carry the load of the weight of your opponent, okay? That's a very common mistake where you're like, oh, frick. You want to move, you can't move because the weight's on you, and now you're basically lifting that load for them. So while you see that and have all those checklists in place, and I'm trying to do it so it's simplified, so you don't have like a full 100 checklist of this has to be right and that has to be right, you have to be aware that the end goal is the right functionality comes about because of the release of the technique. So in other words, if I can release the power, that means everything, 10 out of 10 is happening in place. And I get the right function and results from that. If I can't do it, then the problem exists of collapsing of the structure or basically bearing the weight of the load of the structure. Now you may say to yourself, okay, I hate to say it has to be perfect. You may say, hey, I got this to work. And I was maybe what? 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 on the checklist, right? Well, the reason you got that to work is 1, either it's luck, 2, the other dude, his checklist, if you're 8 out of 10, he may be 7 out of 10, right? Or maybe 5 out of 10. That's why you were able to pull it off, right? Because in reality, you're still retaining some of the power within the arms and you don't have the correct functionality of what it should be doing, okay? So in essence, I don't want people to get hung up on that as far as gotta get this perfect, that perfect, or so forth, because if you go along that route, you don't have that natural free flow that occurs with that. When I say checklist in place and the end result that you're looking for, this is just like a training guide. So you have like an awareness is like, well, how can I fix this, right? You're looking at how can I fix this in particular to make it work. And then if you're aware, like, okay, yeah, I can't maintain this tension and my stance, yeah, then you can work on that. Then you can improve that. But if you're like, I have no clue at all of what to fix, it makes it a lot more difficult. So that's the purpose of that, not to mentally strain you to be thinking. It's just kind of like a tool to help you be like, at least to pinpoint what you can particularly work on to fix a problem. All right?